today we're joined by Carl Young. Love that name, by the way. Carl Young. And we're going to talk about raw foods. We're also going to talk about some of our life experiences as well, whether that be relationships or anything in the last 3 months that we would find beneficial for you. Because Carl and I have been speaking a bit, and some of the experiences that we've had, I believe, will truly resonate with a lot of you, as they've resonated with us in the short conversations we've had. So today, I believe, yeah, going on the topic of raw foods and how that's looked for each other for the last couple of months since the last time we spoke, Carl. So how's that been for you in the last couple of months? Because I know you're still in the thick of winter over there.
Yes, it has been cold, down to about minus 17 degrees Celsius.
Yeah, geez.
Um, I have definitely been a lot warmer than normal. I haven't really been bothered by the cold. And in general, I just feel a lot better on raw foods. So,
Hmm.
also the emotional upliftment, the love that I feel like I'm able to receive from the universe because of the raw foods, helps. It's not just the physical aspect, but also the emotional aspect. So definitely the best winter so far.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, so Australia is really hot at the moment. And in winter I still felt at times a little bit cold, even on the 100% raw foods. But summer's very interesting because whilst being on raw foods, yeah, I very rarely get super hot and like like just can't sleep, like these types of things, especially at night. Doesn't happen. Like my body's able to regulate its temperature very well after almost 2 years on raw foods, and then minus the break, it's 4 years all up. But yeah, 2 years, since I've been on raw food. So it's been good. It's been very good, in fact. And my digestion continues to improve. Have you found that as well?
Yeah, I still have to be a bit careful with what I eat, but it's getting better and better.
For me, like if, which I don't do, if I didn't activate like nuts, for example, I would feel that. I would definitely feel that. Otherwise, yeah, I'm all good. Like I have a lot of coconut yogurt. Like I'm heavy on the fats, but I have fruits, I have smoothies, I have juices. There's really nothing that I feel on the raw food lifestyle my body isn't processing. And you can see it the next day, when you go to the bathroom and that. You know how you're feeling and what's happening. So it's great. It's amazing to be getting to this point after a long time on the health journey.
Yeah, it's definitely 100 times better than it was on cooked foods for me.
Hmm. And how is your energy?
It's fluctuating, um, but I think that's also a lot because of my emotional journey.
Hmm.
Um, it's getting better though, overall, I would say. Um, I
When do you
still think it
find
takes
it?
a little.
When do you find? Is it that it isn't really consistent and leveled out through the day, or are there times that you feel that it's more outside of the emotional stuff, yeah? But just on a day to day, is there times that you feel that you have less energy or more energy?
Um, no, I would say it's relatively consistent and it's still at a high level. Um, I think it could be a lot higher once I have detoxed everything and gotten used to the raw foods fully. I'm
Mm.
also changing what I eat quite a lot. Um, so it's difficult to say really.
And
But
when you say changing, like, are you introducing different smooth foods? Are you doing like smoothies and that? What does that look like?
no, I'm basically just introducing more fruits and changing the fruits I eat. I used to eat a lot of avocados and bananas mostly in the beginning. Now I've switched over to mostly oranges
Hmm.
and nuts as well.
Yeah, what type of nuts?
Walnuts mostly and almonds.
Oh, they're good. Good, man. A lot of people a lot of people in general, in the raw community, I see, not that there's judgment, but I see a lot of people having cashews, and I had cashews for a long period of time. Whilst being on raw and being vegan, until I found out that if you were to actually grab a raw cashew in the wild, and I know that you probably already know this, but if you were to grab a raw cashew and have it, you, so first of all, you can die from that. That's the first thing. It's extremely toxic. The second thing is that, and I've heard of experiences of people doing this and they get like mouth ulcers everywhere. So it's very toxic. That's why a part of having the cashew that you see, even the natural raw ones in the store, they have to be pasteurized. So heat above a certain level to be pasteurized to be able to be digested. I didn't know this and I thought they were raw. And I'd heard this and I was like, oh, it doesn't really make sense, didn't look into it. And then I saw this video, this one guy on YouTube called Micah Sykes, and he literally explained the whole process. Similar like what I just did then, even in more detail. And I was like, wow, like it's not actually raw. And when I stopped having cashews, there was a big shift in my body, big time. Because I only stopped about a year and a half ago when I attained that information and I really like dug deep into it. My digestion, the inflammation in my body, like so many things improved. And I noticed a very large difference from stopping it. So anyone that has cashews, cool. If you want to have cashews, no worries. But just know there are other better alternatives like walnuts, like almonds, like pecans, even mac nuts, macadamia nuts, but they're a bit more expensive. But almonds, like there's so many things you can do with almonds, and you can even sprout almonds. That's the thing, you can't sprout cashews because they're not essentially a living food anymore once it's been pasteurized. But almonds are. You can grow it. I'm currently in the process of sprouting almonds right now.
Wow, I never tried that.
Yeah, it's cool, man. It's very cool, in fact. I love sprouting stuff. So yeah, you're having more walnuts, is it?
Yeah, it's mainly walnuts. I actually knew about the cashews, so I haven't had any cashews since I went raw. Um, and I'm not going to try either after your story.
You know what? I'm glad I had the experience for me because I know what it's like. Like I've felt it. I know exactly what it's like. I know what it's like having cashews and not having cashews and doing a really extended fast and not having cashews after that and seeing how I felt. And with the energy thing, I only feel a bit tired in the mornings. I'm not like waking up like boom, like ready to go. I'm only feeling a bit tired in the mornings. Before Raw, I was feeling a lot more tired, way more tired. And I was feeling my body was needing a lot more sleep, otherwise I'd get sick. Whereas now, I feel a bit tired in the mornings if I haven't slept, say, 8 hours, like the usual, or even sometimes maybe seven, eight. Usually I'm okay, even if it's in between that window. But otherwise, yeah, energy throughout the day, very consistent, like super consistent, and energy levels are quite high for me. And I work out, like cycling, yoga, all that stuff. Like today, I've probably cycled maybe 30 minutes and yoga almost an hour. I think. So, and energy levels are just super consistent.
Yeah, like I don't really see an argument for any other food than raw foods. Um, to me, and to me, there's absolutely zero doubt that this is the only human diet that makes sense.
Yeah, and I my experience has been that not being raw is, yeah, very rough. Again, yeah, the list can go on with getting sick, inflammation, like there's a bunch of different things. And then making the transition for vegans better, but still the next level is then vegan to raw, which is what I've experienced. And the difference, the hard part can be in the transition. And that's where guidance is really, really like super crucial, and very specific guidance of people that you want to follow, that you see, that you watch their stuff and you see how they are, how they look, what they're doing like in their life, like so that they're real like living example that you are wanting to follow, and then you check in with them about that. It's really crucial because a lot of people undereat, a lot of people detox too hard. You can have all different types. You have more fruit, more fats, whatever. Those two things I've seen a lot, and also the deficiencies as well. Um, Being more deficient in other things. And you will naturally be more deficient generally at the start and when you're detoxing and transitioning. But after that phase has been my experience, after that phase, you get to see what your base looks like. And if you are still deficient in some things, which absolutely can happen, then you course correct.
Yeah, but I mean, it's still the healthiest diet by far. So, um, those kinds of issues are like so far out of the picture, in my opinion. Like, it shouldn't even be an argument.
Yeah, no question, no question. If you haven't experienced though, you you will question it, which is quite natural, I would imagine. It's like that saying, uh, it's the saying of like it's almost like having ignorance. I forgot the saying. It's a very, very that's it. That is it. It's contempt prior to investigation. If you have contempt for something, but you haven't experienced it, investigated it, felt it for yourself, and had the correct guidance, then you're not going to know. Yeah, you can act ignorance about it. You can say, oh, no, that's terrible. Why would you ever do that? But yeah, it doesn't mean anything if you haven't experienced it, or at least, well, I would say the investigation part is experiencing it. That's what I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, a lot of people are not interested in this because they don't want change and they want to remain comfortable. But I don't really think we need to speak to those people. I want to speak to the people that are desperate, that are looking
So
for solutions.
absolutely. And I know we talked a bit about your that experience that you had in breatharian and transition to raw on that. So we won't go into that too much. But in the last couple of months, what's been coming up for you?
So I had a very brief, very intense relationship with a woman about 4 months ago now. And that happened because of raw foods, because she was also into raw foods, and we met in a raw vegan Facebook group. So, first of all, I wouldn't even have had that relationship unless it was for the raw foods.
Mm.
And second of all, how much it has helped me to process the emotions that came up in the aftermath of that experience and all of the childhood traumas and everything that I have had to like unravel and deal with, or not had to maybe, but everything came up because I wanted it to. And raw foods have helped me so incredibly much with the emotional component of that and given me like the true confidence to pursue the truth of who I really am. and the belief that I am inherently good and I'm inherently of God, and uh, I am an embodiment of the divine truth of this universe on Earth. And I wouldn't have felt that in my bones um, in a way that I could actually trust if it wasn't for raw foods. So, in that way, raw foods has really been the missing key or the missing ingredient or the secret sauce or um,
The catalyst almost for you to walk walk through it, deal with it, and probably reveal it as well, I would say, from tuning in a bit.
yeah, the amount of like trauma I could have healed in about a year, I've healed in like 2 months.
Wow, that's very powerful.
Yeah. Obviously, you still have to do the work, but because of the raw foods, everything just moves through so much easier. And also, like, because of the juice cleanse.
Hmm. Yeah, I if I can share as well, just on the trauma perspective, I it aligns for me. Being raw vegan and having living foods and being more aligned with how I believe God created us and what I believe that my purpose is on this world as God would have it be, both of those things come into alignment. And the probably the biggest difference I've seen when things come up when I don't feel good enough or the voice in my mind gets very loud and I get pulled in certain directions, whether it be towards women, whether it be towards food, uh, general just emotions. Yeah, anger can be one of them as well for me. What I've found is that raw foods really help keep it in its truth. Like I feel everything. It's not always good at times, but I feel everything. It's very raw, like literally. It's raw food that it's raw. And that can be hard to deal with sometimes because when it is so pure, I don't necessarily want to observe it or feel at times to feel into it. I want to grab something to make that feel better. And this was very pertinent for me when I was going through my addiction with food, initially 6 and a bit years ago, is that transitioning to vegan and then transitioning to raw, I wanted to fill that hole inside me so much with something. And I made that decision and got very connected with God and my faith grew in line with Jesus, is that I was dealing with things as they came up and moving through them, like continually on a day-to-day basis. Sometimes I might eat more raw foods than that, or when I was vegan, eat more raw vegan foods to dumb it down a bit. Most of the time, I was able to continue to work through it though. And it's extremely confronting. Once you get to not that I'm ever going to be like I've made it, no way. Having been on another side of that and really worked through a lot of things, it has drastically changed my life in a major way, emotionally and internally as well. uh, to deal with the day to day, the fears that come up, any anxiety, and yeah, some of the stuff that I still feel of not feeling good enough, which continues regularly for me. And that stems from my childhood of like wanting to be a perfect child and having a split family. And it was just a bad story that I told myself and an expectation I put on myself from a very young age. And it creeps in every now and then. So that I get very obsessed with things and wanting to like fixate on things to get them perfect. which, there's a lot of willingness that can come from that. It can also be very damaging because I can go so hard with things, with that being the goal of like perfection. And then once I crash, I just, yeah, well, that's been a lot of my addictions. As soon as I crash, it's like that lasts for a while.
Yeah, it has definitely helped, and it does help to let go of things.
So what's come up for you in the relationship sense of like working through that? Because I've done it on three three occasions being raw. Yeah, three breakups essentially, but three occasions that I've done that. So what's come up for you?
Mm. Because I hurt this woman a lot. I had a lot of things relating to being a monster or even being a psychopath, which I know why that came up. Um, it was because I was stretching my boundaries too far and disconnected from my empathy to kind of get away from that situation. Um, so, I mean, everything has come up essentially. All of the wounds from my childhood about shame, low self-worth, not being loved, emotional neglect, emotional emptiness, um, loneliness, disconnection, suppression, um, inauthenticity. Honestly, like everything about me that uh, is real or is not real or is true or is not true. Like everything has come to the surface and I've had to, because I wanted to, but everything has come to the surface and I've just um, used tools such as parts work or and light language to cut through all of the bullshit, all of the distortion, all of the attachments that I've had to beliefs and energies that aren't true, that aren't serving me or the highest good of humanity anymore. Everything has come up, and raw foods has been the reason why I've been able to and wanted to deal with everything at the pace that I've been dealing with it. I've spent about 25,000 US dollars on sessions in 4 months, and
Wow.
I would never be able to move all that energy um, without raw foods. I wouldn't even have tried because it would have fried my system. But with raw foods, I feel like I can handle absolutely anything. Um, I'm not afraid to die anymore. I really feel that extremely close connection to the divine. I'm remembering more and more every day that we are the universe experiencing itself. And it's just helping to become truth, divine truth, which is that everything is love. And ultimately, it helps me become a transmission of that from source to humanity. And the raw foods just remove all of the resistance on that channel or connection from source through me to
So
humanity.
what's like an example of how that happened, like an experience that you went through of when you were on the raw foods or you leaned into raw foods, um, that happened. You like you noticed it intently.
The most like obvious experience is my constant connection to the divine, the constant presence of the divine. Um, it's extremely difficult to understand if you're not directly experiencing it. The best way I can describe it as constantly being hugged, uh, like constantly being pressured by a force of divine love. And by pressure, I mean like as if somebody is like physically touching you,
Hmm.
like pressing their hand against you. And also the inner knowing, the very sovereign inner knowing of who you are, and the fact that no one can really hurt you. Um, you know,
Yeah, no, I relate. So there were two experiences that I had in two relationships. One was my most recent one about a year ago, and the other one was several years ago. I'm not sure when, maybe about 5 years ago during COVID, that I got into the relationship and the person I was with was not living the anywhere near the same lifestyle as I was living. Like I wasn't drinking, I was sober, I was on raw foods, and they were still drinking and eating whatever. And I love this person a lot, uh, though there was a big misalignment in our relationship due to that. And where I caused big harm was I stayed in that way past the well, first of all, I didn't have the wisdom to know. Like I loved her. Like she's amazing. And she still is an amazing person. No question about it. That relationship, we absolutely did not align. And because I had the feelings of loving her so much, I it was difficult for me to detach from the relationship. And what would happen is we would break up, and during the period of the breakup, we would attempt to go our separate ways. We would end up talking at some point, and then we would be end up seeing each other again. And that went on for a year. So we only were together for a short period of time. It was like 3 to like 4 month period. And it was almost a year, like from that point, or at least like 9 months, back and forth. And that's where I grew in maturity a lot, and my relationship with God, as I understood God, then had to grow massively during that period because it's easy to tell someone, even when they see it, that this is not good and it's not good for the both of you. And she had a young kid as well, as a toddler as well, baby actually, at that stage. It's not good. And I had to grow in maturity and in my faith to really let that go. And that was very difficult for that period of time. After the decision was made, and emotionally, I was a mess. I remember one time where we had made the split, and after a month, I reached out to her and I called her and we were speaking, and it's almost like a drug. That's how it feels, is that we talk again and it's like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. Like it feels so good. And then later that night, she messages me because she's been seeing another guy. And which, rightly so, she could have. We had been split up. Emotionally, what that did to me was ugh, like I got beyond angry. My self-esteem was like destroyed. And I remember vividly my level of certainty with how I how I felt and also how I conducted myself on a day to day was like non-existent. I was so uncertain. And that was the first time that I can really remember experiencing a panic attack. And I didn't even know what that was like. I have so much anxiety. It's almost like I cannot breathe. Uh, that was the worst time. I'd experienced some of those periods before uh, but that was definitely the worst I'd ever experienced. And I remember the next day, I let my boss know I couldn't come into work. Emotionally, I was just an absolute mess. And I went to spend some time with my mum. And I remember we went to a cafe and we spent like 5 minutes there and I just started crying. And like, I didn't even know why. And I just had to we just had to drive. Like we just got out of there. Mum's like, "Hey, okay, we got to go." She's very loving. She's amazing. She's like, "Yeah, it's probably best that we go." And we ended up going back to hers, and I just cried so much. And yeah, I did that to myself. That's the thing, you know. Yes, we all have emotions. Yeah, we have what we feel, but I put myself in that position. Not that you shouldn't trust people, but I put myself in that position, having broken off, I was unable to let go. And because I was unwilling to let go, I put myself in that situation again, and then my emotions just got completely destroyed. So that was one thing that I had to really grow through and mature out of. And I know a lot of people struggle with that in relationships. When they know the other partner, there's not alignment or they're not getting treated well. I got treated well, there just wasn't alignment. And I knew that. Inherently, I knew that after we took a little break in the relationship. But yeah, to make that decision is a whole nother thing. And it's really important to have a relationship with God during those moments, or to really cultivate your faith and to have very supportive people around you, because it makes it a lot easier. But a decision has to come from you at the end of the day. So yeah, that was my experience with that one. Was that similar to how you felt during yours, or can you relate a bit?
I can definitely relate. This particular relationship wasn't really like that. I was honestly in shock, more than anxiety with this one. But I have had previous experiences that are very similar to yours. So with the panic attacks is what I'm talking about. But I wanted to like say that raw foods and the consequent connection to God because of the raw foods really helps fill that void, that makes you like hold on to those types of situations.
Yeah, and mind you, I stayed raw during that period, which was very difficult because a lot of the time I didn't want to, but that was the truth that I was getting spoken to, stick with this, to continue to surrender, and that was like the whole thing, like just continue to surrender, which I found it very hard to do at the time.
But did it help to be on raw foods or no?
Yes, it did. Put it this way, if I wasn't on raw foods, it would have been a lot worse. And that's probably the distinction that I can make. It was still very difficult being on raw, and dealing and being in that relationship and after that. But if I wasn't on raw, I know, because you cannot use it as like a crutch. You can't fill that void when you're on raw. Yes, you can like eat like a heap of like nuts and stuff like that. To a degree, you can do that and go more gourmet foods. That's not what I did though. So it was very, very rare that I did anything like that because I was addicted to food. So I was very aware of not doing that because I know where that can lead to, especially with me. So that kept me really locked in, and I yeah, I if I didn't make that decision and say I even went vegan, and was like I would have just numbed more of those emotions with the food. It's just another thing that you can do. You can numb it in plenty other ways, but it would have been another thing. So it was a lot better.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you for my last experience, and recovering from that emotional shock, raw foods were absolutely crucial. I think it would have been 10 times worse if I wasn't on raw foods.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more.
And it's mostly about the emotional aspects and the connection to the divine.
Hmm. And what was, if you're cool to share, what was so shocking to you? Or are you still processing it?
Um, I can tell you very briefly what happened. I mean, the relationship only lasted 3.5 weeks, so it won't take too long.
Yeah, yeah.
So essentially, we just met on this Facebook group and immediately had a very strong connection. We had very similar interests. Um, and if you believe in this kind of stuff, I've had it confirmed that we are very close on a soul level. Um, that does not necessarily translate to compatible relationships in the 3D, but it can um, make it so that you resonate and get along or like are drawn to each other. If you believe in that stuff, it can also like be very dysfunctional. Anyway, we had a very, very strong connection immediately. And I could immediately tell as soon as we had our first phone call that this isn't my person. I got that feeling immediately. She did not get that feeling. Um, and she kind of pushed for that relationship. Um, and everything like that I had wanted seemed to be in this person. Like it was just too good for me to say no to, especially in the situation where I was very alone to start with. And I had this feeling that this isn't my person, but everything else, like even the raw foods, like how do you find another raw vegan? There's only like 3 people in Norway. So um,
Yeah, I'm
it was just
probably
too good for.
probably experiencing the same with Australia as well.
Yeah, like there are not that many raw vegans, and like raw vegan was like a complete deal breaker for me. I don't really want to be with a person who isn't raw vegan because um, it's so important, this connection to the divine that I believe can only really be felt through having a body that is like in optimal health and in alignment with how a human body is supposed to feel like. And as from what I can tell, raw foods is the only way to get there. Maybe vegetarianism is the only exception. Anyway, so basically, I found everything I wanted in this person, except for the fact that she wasn't my person. Um, so, the relationship kept unfolding. We kept talking every day for hours. And, I essentially promised her a bunch of things um, about our future and whatnot, and our relationship that ended up not being real. And kind of stretched myself to to like be the person that she wanted, even though that wasn't really me. And which is looking back at it, it was essentially just lying, um, literally lying. But I didn't see that at the time. Like I didn't know I was lying because, like, even though I inherently knew this wasn't my person, because everything seemed to be too good to be true. I made myself believe that it was my person. So I ignored this feeling of this isn't right. Like this relationship isn't right. So essentially I just lied um, without realizing it. At the end, I started to realize it like the last 4 days. I was like, I have to say something because this doesn't feel right anymore. But at that point, I was kind of scared because she wasn't. I didn't feel like she would take it well.
Mm.
Um, so I felt like if I said something, I'd probably lose the relationship, and I didn't want to risk that. Um, because of how lonely I was. It was like a very difficult time in my life. I mean, you could say that about any time in my life, but um, essentially, I just didn't want to do that, even though I should have. It was, looking back, it was very cowardly, even though it was also very understandable. And I don't know if you believe that we have different like internal aspects or personalities, but essentially I started to like push her away and I started to be like annoyed by her because like I felt like this isn't right and she needed a lot of attention and like time together. And I started to like feel annoyed and like push her away and be like passive aggressive.
Mm.
Um, and that like started quite suddenly, like for the past 4 days of the relationship. Um, it started to escalate and without me like feeling like I had any control over it or like even realizing what was happening. I thought it was like because I had some trauma um, that I wanted to hurt her for because of childhood trauma, not because of the fact that I didn't want that relationship. Um, so I mean, I did things that hurt her without realizing it, like pushing her away essentially. By the way, we never met in person. This was all over the phone calls.
Mm.
Um, and at the end, um, without realizing, I said some passive aggressive slash mean things about her without me even realizing it. Like to me, this sounded like a joke, but it definitely didn't land like a joke.
Mm.
Um, and when she told me that I had stepped over the line, I said, okay, it's probably over anyway now, so I might as well tell her about all the lies and everything. And she did not take that well, obviously. I mean, she relied on me for emotional support very heavily during this relationship. She wasn't in the best place either in her life. Um, so it hurt her very, very deeply.
Mm.
And she perceived this as probably one of the worst betrayals of her life. Um, and those past 4 days especially, but the whole relationship was very, very fast paced, very intense. Like I've never really experienced that level of intensity before. And this came after a very long period of me being completely isolated, um, having no friends or anything, really, barely talking to my family or anything. So I was extremely like unprepared for that kind of relationship and that level of intensity.
And that to you was the shock of it when those things happened and they unveiled the shock of that, and then you could say what had then happened after that. Is that what it was for you? By the way,
Um,
before you answer that, I totally relate and I totally understand because I've done a very similar thing. So, and to share all of that in quite detail as well, takes a lot of courage and it's very, very good. So, I love it, man. Sorry. So yeah, was that was part that was shocking to you?
the part that was mostly shocking was probably, first of all, believing that this relationship would be like a thing that would last for the rest of our lives, because I did believe that. Um, and then the fact that I was mean to her, and because like I believed that I was a good person um, throughout this relationship. I believed that I could be a type of solution to her struggles also. I thought it would be a healing experience for her. And I just hurt her even
Mm.
more than like she was already like pretty traumatized. And I just, thought that I could be the antidote to that, and instead I just became even more pain for her. And that like I didn't know that I could hurt somebody that deeply. Um and cut myself off from empathy, because at the end it didn't feel like I cared about her anymore, which was probably the worst part of the whole thing, honestly. Like I was so detached from my empathy and you know, like feeling her pain that uh I just I felt like I didn't have any emotions at that time. And
Yeah.
it was just very, very brutal, honestly. Um for both of us emotionally. Um she obviously blocked me, um so I have no contact with her. So I have no idea how she dealt with that or how it impacted her life.
That's also
Um,
difficult, not having closure. Well, it can be, and usually it is. In these, in my experience, that yeah, usually that's tough as well because if you see the other person is doing better, or you know that, it brings a lot of closure. But not knowing can also be tough to deal with too.
yeah, I mean, I definitely was struggling emotionally. Like, fortunately, I had so much support during this time from coaches and healers, light language activators, and well, I mean, parts work facilitators, people that are able to channel. I had so much support during this time, and without that, I would have been I would have been in a very bad place. I felt, prepared to not be here anymore for moral reasons. I felt like I was really genuinely a horrible person, and like I believed that I was a horrible person. Um, I very, very suddenly met the worst part of myself that I didn't even know. I mean, maybe I knew it existed, but I never thought it would like actually express itself in like a real way to hurt someone.
Hmm.
And it all happened without me even like realizing it. Um, so it was just extremely shocking. And for a week after, I just walked around, like feeling like I wanted to throw up. Like, it was like getting into a car crash. That kind of experience, that kind of emotional response. It felt like getting into a car crash or something like that.
Yeah, it's definitely a numbness and also yeah traumatic as well. So it's yeah I can definitely understand. And I've had a very similar experience with someone that it wasn't reciprocal from my end, and she was an incredible person. And I knew about a month and a bit in that we didn't gel for me. And when you're trying to force something to work, is how I felt. There's a lot of resistance that can come with that. She's incredible. Like just so amazing, like such an amazing person, so caring too. And this happened a couple of years ago when I got into a relationship. Like, man, yeah, like I, I even had an example of this was I had chlamydia coming into the relationship that I wasn't even aware of. I we slept together and she got that off the back of me and which that was a whole thing, for her. And then after that, she because like I actually wasn't aware when I was with her, and then I told her when I became aware when I when I did a checkup at the doctor's or she did. I think it was very similar when we both checked up. Anyway, that happened. And because she knew that my intention was okay, like that, you know, that I wasn't aware, she was still willing to like continue the relationship and then work through that. And that was a very difficult period with us. And I felt very bad, extremely bad about that because I didn't want that from her. And I felt like because my prior actions to the women that I was seeing, um, I felt I could have stopped that and chose not to and didn't get checkup and etc. So then after that, having then dealt with that, I could see just on a personality perspective, uh, it, very similar to how what you mentioned, is that the relationship I didn't feel was in it for me. And I felt that very close in. It was about a month and a half in. But she was such an incredible person that I was like, this is insane. She's amazing. So I continued to try and then broke it off with her to have a break because I wanted to see during that period what would happen, which she was amazing through again. Then got back with her to see, okay, maybe something's changed, yeah, and we can like work through this, and maybe it's just something to do with me. Because like you said, like you had experienced, sorry, I was also getting annoyed over like little things that she did, which I really shouldn't have been getting annoyed with. Um, and pushing her away more so. And I wanted to give her many more experiences, but I felt like I kept pushing her away. So took the break, then got back together, and after a month, same thing happened. And I was like, okay, it's very clear to me that this isn't going to work. And then we got, yeah, like we're getting together again, and then I'm taking her through that whole journey again. And then I made the decision. I let her know, which again, she was amazing through, and then we parted our ways. And she, for me, she's the only relationship that I've been in, which has been about uh, five. That's been more than so. Let's say 3 months. Yeah, uh, five that I would consider proper relationships. So it's 3 months, a year, 2 years. That we are on very good terms, and 100% that's because of her, like 100%. Because I did many things in that relationship which was not right, and even after the first month and a half, it's like things that I'm aware of, but I'm also not aware of. But I was quite aware then that this wasn't really going to work, but I was still figuring that out. So. Yeah, but we're still on very good terms, and absolutely, she's an amazing person. So, and then I continued to my next relationship not too long after that experience, actually, probably a couple of weeks. And that was the most intense relationship. So this has been more recent, and we met, so I'm 30 now, we met about 3 years ago, I think, maybe 3 and a bit years ago. And that was absolutely the most intense by far. And when we met, all the sparks went off. And mind you, that none of these people had been vegan or even raw vegan, because that up until my last relationship, that wasn't something that it wasn't like a requirement for me of a value or I saw in my future wife. It wasn't. That has changed though in the last, well, from my last relationship which was over a year ago, about a year and a half ago, that started to change in a massive way. And I experienced that going through a relationship, which was full on. But yeah, sparks completely went off on this one. We were so, so deeply in love. We did long distance. I ended up, cut a real long story short, I ended up quitting my job. I moved over there, couldn't get a visa, came back to Australia, broke up, were breaking up many times during this relationship because of the level of commitment to like move my life over to Luxembourg was the place in Europe. So we went through a whole entire thing to get me to the point after a year and a half that I made the decision to go over there and fully commit. And I did that, left like all my money gone, had been drained from the relationship of like spending it, trying to keep myself afloat, being unemployed. Moved over there, again, lost a job, far from family, trying to establish my own faith in the church that was there, and many other things. And that was a very trying time for me. And what I realized as the relationship continued to progress is that I was wanting someone that was on the same path as me. And again, we were totally not aligned. But we had been aligned for that year and a half. It was only when I moved and lived day to day that over the months it became very clear to me that we weren't aligned. We weren't aligned with faith at all. Um, she didn't believe in faith or God of her own understanding at all. And I was going to church pretty much every single week, strong faith in Jesus. And I'm not saying that, you have to have those things in the relationships, but they're very, very important, extremely important. And that's what I've realized, aligning up with your values. And yeah, she wasn't vegan, vegetarian. So yeah, or raw vegan, yeah, definitely not. So that became a constant, that started to become an issue for me in the relationship. And there was a lot of stuff that happened, huge amount, a lot of anger, a lot of stuff that I said, a lot of things that happened in the relationship that I wish I could take back. I wish I'd done better. A lot of fear, so much fear because of the commitment that I made. Also trying to start a business over there and not working, being unemployed, her supporting me, everything. And it left with me saying that I'm losing myself, which I absolutely was. I felt like I was completely losing touch with the person that I once was prior going into that relationship. And I said, either we really align here uh, regarding our faith and regarding our lifestyle choices, or we separate. And I moved back. And ultimately, she chose not to, which was okay. And I ended up leaving and yeah, came back to Australia. And we didn't speak. I made the decision that we weren't going to speak. And I told her this before, that if this decision was to be made, we have to have a break. This has been going on for 2 years now. Like there's no back and forth. And that is something I learned from the last relationship. So I knew space was required. It was an absolute must. Even though because of me and how fearful it was to make this big commitment, which was really affecting her as well, banning her, all that stuff about us breaking up almost 3 times in the relationship or having breaks because I wasn't able to commit because it was so far from like moving the whole life, the job and all that. There was so much uncertainty to make a decision like that. But when I did make that jump in faith, everything revealed itself very quickly to me. So I'm very grateful that I had the experience. I still feel for her. I still care about her. But after 6 months, yeah, we didn't speak. We blocked each other to give us space. And then after 6 months, I reached out to her and we had a conversation. And yeah, and little conversations from then. And I believe she's doing okay. I believe so. And I believe that she's happy, which was the most outside of losing myself a lot in that relationship and regaining all that back, the foundation building up my income again, etc., was that she was happy and that she had closure. And I believe from the last time we spoke, very briefly on our birthdays, where birthdays were like 1 month apart in November, that she found that, which was amazing.
Yeah, we learn so much from relationships.
Yeah, it teaches us a lot about each other in a big way, definitely.
Yeah, everything we do helps us find out the truth of who we are and what we really want.
And the big lessons from for me, and I haven't been with anyone for since I left that relationship, because it's been very important for me to build some foundations in my life, my faith, my health, which has been amazing. I've really focused on me and getting close with my family again, being back in Australia. So it's been incredible. And I'm now ready to, I believe, I'm ready to take that next step. And I know what I'm looking for in a relationship um, now. It's more clear than it's ever been. So, yeah, I'll be going through that process. Nice, man. Did you want to talk about anything else? I feel like we covered a lot there.
Mhm. Yeah, I just wanted to mention that raw foods has really helped me to shed things about me that aren't true and has really helped me lose interest in things that aren't good for me anymore.
Hmm. And just to reflect and mention that last relationship, I was vegan and made the transition to raw vegan during that relationship, which was it was the right decision for me, for my truth and what I felt massively in my soul. That was very That was a that was a very difficult time in the relationship as well. Uh, Huge because polar opposites. And that was only getting stronger for me. My faith and my commitment to raw foods and my health was only getting stronger. And that's when like we really, I felt we really started to grow apart a lot. So. And roots foods, as far as what helped me, it's just the spiritual journey with that intertwined really helped me find my truth in a major way. And there's been a lot of healing since that relationship, which has been amazing. And I've continued on this path. And I'm super, super, super grateful that I have continued on because if I didn't, there would have been many things that I wouldn't have dealt with from being in that relationship up until now. And I don't feel like I've lost myself at all. I have grown more into who I believe God has planned me to be, only more. That conviction only goes stronger. And I'm looking forward to growing even more. Like saying there's a difference between losing ourselves and discovering more parts of who we are. And that is been the journey for me during this period of going from a period where I had lost myself, I regained myself, and now I'm continuing to grow even more through that, which has been incredible. And it's all thanks to God for me and a lot of support that I've had along the way, which has been good. Well, I pray that this is some value for our audiences. I know I'll post this to mine. I know you'll post it to yours, because this is very raw. This is very raw life experiences that have come up for both Karl and I, especially in the last couple of years, the last couple of months. So yeah, man, I really appreciate you sharing everything you've shared, and I know the viewers will absolutely be getting something out of this. So thanks a lot, man.
Thank you too, Tom. You're a blessing.
Thank you, man.